everybody, and welcome back to the MrEliMac channel. I am MrEliMac, and this video series that you are currently watching right now is called Pitch This. Yes, Pitch This is the series where I pitch a movie or a television series that I would love to see get made. But before I get into the pitch, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps this video get out to more people. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new pitch video comes your way. Now, we've made it to the end of Spider-Man month. It's very sad. My heart is a bit broken. See, I'm wearing the Spider-Man shirt. But I've had a lot of fun pitching all of these Spider-Man movies. We started with Spider-Girl, then we went to Ultimate Spider-Man, then we did Spider-Man 2099, and then we went to Spider-Man Japan. And now we are finally here to show more appreciation to my favorite comic book hero of all time. He is the character that I have loved so much, and I've been so happy that we have been able to take this month to appreciate the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man. And so I've decided for the last video in Spider-Man month, I'm going to be doing a movie pitch that I've had in my head for quite a while. Yes, this is a pitch that I've been wanting to tell people for a few months now, ever since Spider-Man No Way Home came out. That is right, I'm doing a movie pitch for the 4th entry in the MCU Spider-Man saga. So I want to assure everybody I'm not going to be calling it Spider-Man 4. I have a subtitle ready to go, and it's a subtitle that I think best represents the idea of this movie, and an idea that I think Marvel Studios is wanting to bring, especially following Spider-Man No Way Home. And there are a few caveats that I wanted to put into this movie before I fully pitched it out. The first one is that there will be no MJ or Ned. Now, I understand that Zendaya is very popular right now, and why wouldn't you want her in one of your movies? But to establish that Peter is trying to distance himself from MJ and Ned, I thought it would be best to have a movie where they're not in it. And I understand that Jacob Batalon's relationship with Tom Holland, like, they have a very close friendship, but again, I thought it would be best to not have these characters in it, because the entire point of Spider-Man No Way Home was to make it to where his friends no longer remembered him, and I wanted to make that a fact with this movie. And so that is why I'm not putting MJ or Ned in this movie. Also, there won't be a Gwen Stacy either. The only reason why there's not a Gwen Stacy in this movie or in this trilogy is because she's so connected with Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man that I didn't want to try and copy that relationship that they had built. So we've already seen Spider-Man with Gwen Stacy. At least when it comes to the love interest, those are the main plot points that I'm avoiding. Also, any prior supporting characters, not including the Daily Bugle and all the characters associated with the Daily Bugle, but any character that was a major supporting character, like any of the high school friends, like Flash Thompson is not going to be in this movie. Happy Hogan is not going to be in this movie. Like, I very much wanted this to feel like a from scratch Spider-Man movie. So there are going to be supporting characters that we know, that we're familiar with, but ultimately, at the end of the day, this franchise or this movie is going to have characters that we do know, that we do have association with, but they're not going to be any of the characters from the prior trilogy of MCU Spider-Man movies. So those are the rules that I put in front of me. And I just wanted to let everyone know, that way if you're expecting if you're expecting MJ or Ned or Flash or any of those characters, Gwen Stacy, to appear in this film, I just wanted to let you all know at the top that they will not be in it. So here is my pitch for Spider-Man Brand New Day. And again, everyone was probably wondering, if we're not going with Gwen, if we're not going for MJ, who is going to be the main love interest of this story? Well, I've decided to pick a love interest that really hasn't been used in an MCU movie yet. Well, she has been used, but not an MCU movie, but a Spider-Man movie. She has been used, but she was very much more of a supporting cast member and just a character in a subplot for Harry Osborn. So I'm going to be introducing the MCU version of Felicia Hardy, Black Cat, in this movie. But she won't be Black Cat. If you've ever seen the 1990s Spider-Man show, it had Felicia Hardy sort of play the Gwen Stacy role in the series, where she was an on-again, off-again love interest for Peter, and she very much was sort of the competitor for MJ when it came to Peter's romance. And that's sort of the direction where I'm going with Felicia Hardy. She's not going to be Black Cat at all in this film. We will sort of build to having her be Black Cat, but in this film she won't be Black Cat. Another question will be, which Marvel hero will be appearing in this film? Because if we continue the trend, and I think this is also a stipulation in the Sony contracts, that a Marvel character from the MCU has to be a major supporting character in this film. And so when it came to picking that character, I found it was very obvious choice, and I've decided to go with the obvious choice. Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, will be appearing in this film as sort of not a mentor figure, but more of a partner type character, where the main threat of this movie is going to need Daredevil's assistance as well. And that's sort of where the connection lies between Spider-Man and Daredevil in that case. And so we get into the question of who is going to be the main antagonist. Well, before I tell you who the main antagonist is, I'm going to tell you that he will have henchmen. He's going to have two specific henchmen. And the only reason why there are two specific henchmen is because when it comes to this character, he is known for having a cabal and a plethora of henchmen. And I've decided to go with Tombstone, who is going to be a henchman in this story, and not so much, he's going to be more playing like the Hammerhead. If you've seen the Spectacular Spider-Man, Tombstone is going to be the Hammerhead figure, where Hammerhead was like was the second lieutenant to the big man, who in the Spectacular Spider-Man series was Tombstone. So Tombstone is just shifting over to the Hammerhead role. And the second main henchman is going to be Scorpion. Yes, I'm bringing back Michael Mando, who was in Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm bringing him back as Matt Gargan, aka Scorpion, and he's going to be in the green suit that we know and we love. We're going to see that version of Scorpion on the screen in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And so the main antagonist of this film is going to be Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin. And there were a lot of different directions that I wanted to go with Kingpin, like whether I wanted to fully beat him or not. That's a decision that we'll probably get to when we organically create this, because I'm doing this sort of more freeform, because again, this is an idea that I've had in my head for years, or not for years, for a few months now, because I've wanted to give my idea of what a Spider-Man 4 in the MCU could look like. And so here we go. So it's sort of going to start out with Spider-Man being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, saving the day in Manhattan and going about his life as Spider-Man, while also trying to not make any major connections like he did when he was in the prior trilogy. He's not going to want to try to have an MJ or a Ned. He's trying to disconnect himself from everyone. And so he is going to college. He's going specifically to Empire State University, like he does in the comics. He's not going to Columbia University, which was in the Raimi trilogy. He's going to Empire State. And in Empire State, that's when he meets his main college, not roommate, because they don't allow men and women to be roommates, but that's where he meets his main classmate, Felicia Hardy. And they sort of get into a banter of sorts. They don't start off as like love interests at all, but they start bantering with each other. But Peter is trying to keep himself distant from not Mary Jane, from Felicia Hardy. It's very hard not to say Mary Jane because everyone knows that is the relationship. But he's trying to distance himself from Felicia Hardy. That way he doesn't have a scenario like he did with MJ and Ned. He doesn't want that to happen, so that's why he's keeping himself at a distance. Whilst also at the same time, he is trying to make money, and he's currently working a job at the Daily Bugle, where he is working as, not as a photographer, but as a sort of photographer, where instead of taking pictures of Spider-Man, he is getting footage of Spider-Man, and that's sort of his main role in that. Where we also meet for the first time of Peter meeting with J. Jonah Jameson and them having the rapport that they have, and that's when we meet one of the main producers behind J. Jonah Jameson's show, Robbie Robertson. And Robbie is very much against what J. Jonah Jameson is saying about Spider-Man, and whenever Peter meets with Robbie about that situation, Robbie is very much like, look, I may disagree with him, but he is someone that has been a friend for a long time. And even though we saw in No Way Home that J. Jonah Jameson really didn't have his show, he mainly had his show in his basement for the longest time, it was sort of Robbie and J. Jonah, the way I'm positioning them is they have been friends for years, and Jonah had always had the idea of anti-vigilante, and that was always his stance, whereas Robbie wasn't really anti-vigilante, but Robbie was always a person that JJ could look to as a, hey, I need to talk to someone. And so JJ, as success began to rise, he automatically gave Robbie the producer gig because of their friendship. And so that's the story behind Robbie being the main producer with JJ. And we also meet an intern that JJ has for the Daily Bugle. Well, not so much an intern. She's sort of like getting the ropes of being a reporter at the Daily Bugle, but she is mainly an intern, and that is Betty Brant. And Betty does not remember Peter at all from high school. In fact, this is sort of like, oh, I'm meeting you for the first time, and Peter is having to navigate that idea of, oh yeah, this is the first time that we're meeting, sort of. And so that's sort of their friendship. And I'm looking at Betty as being sort of Peter's main confidant. Like, she is his sort of becoming his best friend. And that's sort of the relationship that they're having in this story. Whilst all this is happening, Peter is stopping street crime. He's stopping crime that's happening throughout all of New York and Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan. He's stopping all of that crime. And that's interrupting the massive figurehead of all of organized crime in New York City, the Kingpin, aka Wilson Fisk. And so during this time, the Kingpin has decided, like, hey, Tombstone, Scorpion, I want you to take out Spider-Man because he is hurting my business. And I don't like that he's hurting my business. And that would be sort of when we get into the main second act, the first main fight, where instead of it being Tombstone versus Spider-Man, it's Scorpion versus Spider-Man. And Peter automatically remembers Matt Gargan, but again, it's the first time he's seeing him since 2016. So in MCU timeline order. And so he's seeing the newly changed Matt Gargan as Scorpion. And so they'll have a fight and Scorpion will get the upper hand, but that's when he will get interrupted by the Man Without Fear, Daredevil. And so that's when Scorpion will run off and Peter and Matt Murdock will meet with each other and they'll sort of discuss. Matt will sort of tell Peter what he's gotten into, and that he's interrupting the business of one Wilson Fisk. And that is sort of like going to be the main thing of Peter not really caring that Wilson Fisk is this kingpin and all. It's going to be more focused on Peter being like, I'm gonna stop him either way. And even Matt going, you can't just go to Wilson Fisk and beat him up and throw him in jail. Wilson Fisk is very well connected. He is not like any other bad guy that you fought. He's not the Vulture. He's not Mysterio. He's not any of them. And so that will be sort of the main thing with Peter being like, I'm going to try to find him and I'm going to try to beat him up. And throughout the entire movie, Peter tries to find Wilson Fisk, whilst at the same time he's sort of accidentally forgetting his schoolwork. He's very much not able to get what he wants done. And that sort of hinders his school life, where Felicia is very much trying to say, like, hey, why are you missing school all the time? Why are you missing these classes? And Peter's like, well, I'm very busy. Like, I have all this stuff that I gotta do. And Felicia's like, what do you have to do? Like, are you visiting family or something? Do you have family here? And Peter says, no, most of my family has passed away. So I'm just trying to distract myself from all of that. And Felicia would be understanding. And she would even say that she lost her father. And that would be sort of how they would connect with each other, through their loss of family. But again, Peter would continue to try to find Wilson Fisk. And then we would get to a point where he does meet Wilson Fisk, but the Kingpin just takes him out easily, is able to beat him up like that. And it takes Matt Murdock, Daredevil, to come in and save Peter from the Kingpin, and even his goons of Tombstone and Scorpion. And that's when Peter fully comes to Daredevil and say, I can't do this. I thought I could be a hero for the people. I could be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but I can't even beat this guy who's connected. I can't beat this guy who's connected to all of the street level crime. I can't be the hero that New York needs. I can't be this hero. And that's when Daredevil would say, no, you can. You see, I've been fighting against Kingpin's threats for years. I know quite a bit about the Kingpin at this point, and I could never fight him alone. I've been able to get some success throughout the years. Like, I've been able to beat him and send him to jail once. I've beat him down when the FBI was backing him. He even had a guy dressed up like me to make me look like a bad guy, in reference to Daredevil season 1 and 3. So yeah, Daredevil would make mentions of all of his adventures in the Netflix Daredevil show, and Daredevil would basically tell Peter, like, look, I've never been able to do it alone. And maybe I've been going about this wrong. Maybe I'm not supposed to do it alone. Maybe I'm supposed to have help. Maybe you're supposed to have help. So how about we work together to take down the Kingpin? And though Peter would be hesitant, he wouldn't want to fully, like, take Matt's help, because it's only two of them. And I would want to make reference to Daredevil saying, well, if you think we need help, I have a friend in Harlem that might be able to help. He's got unbreakable skin, and that would lead to, like, a reference to Luke Cage. But Peter would be like, no, that's probably too many. Maybe it does just need to be the two of us. And so the two of them would team up to fight off against the Kingpin. And that's ultimately what would happen, where it would be Peter and Matt fighting together to take down Tombstone, and both of them fighting together to take down Scorpion. But that would leave them both to be a little out of breath and sort of like not knowing what to do. And so when they would have to fight Kingpin would overpower both of them. Because though Peter has powers, Kingpin sort of at this point has powers, quote unquote, because you saw Hawkeye, he was shot with arrows and he was able to walk it off. So I don't know how we got to that point. Maybe with Daredevil Born Again, the 18 episode series, we'll get an idea of how Kingpin got to this point. Maybe even Echo will show us what happened. But within this time, it would be Peter and Daredevil working together to take down Kingpin, and ultimately Kingpin would take out Daredevil, not kill him, but like knock him out. And that's when Peter would sort of start to realize why Kingpin is doing everything he's doing. And it's because he wants to bring Vanessa back to America. Because if you remember in Daredevil Season 3, she had to leave the country. And that was the only way that Daredevil would fully agree to stop Kingpin. Or that's what Kingpin made a deal with Daredevil saying, hey, if you leave Vanessa alone, I will go to jail willingly. And Daredevil was like, she's got to go out of the country. If you come in, I will not mess with Vanessa. And so that was the deal. And so Kingpin is trying to find a way to bring Vanessa back to the United States. And when Peter discovers that, he basically tells Wilson Fisk, like, hey, that's never going to happen. You made this deal. She's gone. And I know you want her back. She's the person you've loved your entire life. I understand what losing a loved one is like. But you have to stop this. And Kingpin's basically like, I'm not going to stop until I get Vanessa back. And Peter's like, all right. Then it looks like I have to take you in. And Kingpin's like, all right. Come on. And so Peter and Kingpin get into a big fight, which ultimately would lead to Peter beating Kingpin and even sending him to jail. With Kingpin even telling Spider-Man, like, if you think this is going to work, if you think this is how you're going to beat me, you are wrong, Spider-Man. I'm going to be out of jail in 1 month. In 1 month, I'm going to be back on the street and everything's going to be mine again. And Peter will just tell him, all right, and I'll be waiting. Just like I do every single day. Waiting for another crime to be committed so that I can put them behind bars. So go ahead, go to jail, get out. I'll just put you back there again and again and again and again. Basically having the recurring theme of Kingpin is going to be a major threat for not only Daredevil and Daredevil Born Again, but also a major threat for Spider-Man in the future. So I'm not fully killing Kingpin, and sure, I'm putting him in jail, but there is a potential for Kingpin to get out of jail and be a recurring threat in future movies. We will see what the MCU wants to do. I just know for me, I want to put him in jail for this point. That way for the next film, for Spider-Man 5, we can have a different threat for him. Instead of being just committed to Kingpin as the main antagonist of this entire trilogy, blah, 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 blah. We can have different main antagonists throughout. And so now that Kingpin's in jail and Peter Parker saved the day again, everyone is happy, even though the Daily Bugle still spouts anti-Spider-Man propaganda. Peter meets with Matt Murdock out of costume. He acts like they don't know. They act like they don't know each other because we don't. But Matt sort of starts figuring out that Peter is Spider-Man, and they both sort of like. And even Peter starts discovering that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and they're sort of like, yeah, well, if you need anything, just let me know. I'll always be there to help. And they'll just shake hands and they'll walk off. And so, even with this done, Peter will go back to Empire State. He'll figure out how to continue his school life. And he'll meet with Felicia. And he'll even tell Felicia, like, hey, I know I've been distant, but it's because there was a lot of pain in my life prior. I lost someone that was important to me, and I had to make a sacrifice that I never thought I'd have to make. And because of that that's why I've been keeping people at arm's length. And I think I'm done with that. So I'm curious if you're interested in going out to get some coffee. And not the Luke Cage type of coffee, just legitimately just going out to get some coffee. And that would be sort of where the credits would start to roll, as Spider-Man and Felicia would go in to get some coffee and all. Again, not the Luke Cage coffee. If you've seen Luke Cage, you know that type of coffee leads to something else, but we're not getting that type of coffee. And so we're going to go to the mid-credit scene now. And it's going to be back at Peter's apartment. Again, Felicia and Peter did not get that kind of coffee. But Peter is, he's out of the costume. He's about to go. He's like in the shower at this point, and the costume is just laying on his desk. And from the windowsill, we start seeing a black goo sort of crawling up the window, and it starts moving closer and closer to the suit. And as the shower gets done and the door opens, Peter looks at his suit that he had been working on really hard in No Way Home, and suddenly it's just all black with a white, massive white symbol across his chest and big white eyes. Peter looks at it and just like, I don't remember this being this way. Looks cool though. And then he would put it on and he would swing out. And we would start setting up for Spider-Man, for the future of Spider-Man, to the symbiote saga. And I really want the symbiote saga to be like a three movie thing, whereas part 1 is this, and it's just, he gets it. For the 5th one, he has the suit, but we're not getting Venom yet. We're setting up Venom. Even the way I would do it is that in the 5th Spider-Man movie, we would get Eddie Brock introduced as a reporter for the Daily Bugle, and we wouldn't get him we wouldn't see Venom sort of in the main crux of the movie. It would be Peter getting corrupted by the suit. Whereas in the 6th one, that would be when we would get Peter versus Venom. But then we're going to get to the final post-credit scene, which sets up more of the future. And so the main crux of this plot line that's happening in the background is that a major company is close to sealing and finalizing a deal. We don't know what the deal is, but a company is doing that. And what we would see is that we would see someone in an entire room by himself, this massive room, and this man sitting in a chair by himself. And the phone would ring, and it would be like, hello? Is it done? And we would sort of hear on the other side saying, yeah, the deal is done. Be like, good. And then that would be when the man would put the phone down and he would look at the newspaper in front of them, and it would be saying Kingsley Industry on top. And so I would be setting up for Spider-Man 5 that the main antagonist is going to be Roderick Kingsley, aka Hobgoblin. Now, I know I already had Hobgoblin be the main antagonist for Spider-Girl, but I really want a different type of Goblin to be the main antagonist of the MCU. I know some people want the Osborns to come in, but I think with how they set up things in No Way Home, that the Osborns don't exist in the 616. If they do, they're very good at hiding them. And there was very much a point where I wanted to have Harry Osborn in this pitch. There was a lot of points where I was mentioning his college life that I wanted to say, oh, and by the way, Harry Osborn's in it. But I was holding myself back because I was still trying to keep in the parameters of No Way Home established that the Osborns really don't exist in the 616. We're about to see them in Spider-Man freshman year, but that animated show is not set in the 616. So yeah, that is my pitch for Spider-Man 4, the MCU Spider-Man 4, aka my Spider-Man Brand New Day. I worked really hard on this one. Like, as you can see, I was doing it freeform, not reading off of a script, because this was an idea that I've had running through my head for months, and I've been waiting to talk about it for quite a while. Also, as you saw, I had a lot of fan castings throughout, mainly with Tombstone and Black Cat and Robbie Robertson. Those were the 3 main fan casts that I had, and some of them were a little traditional and some of them are a bit obvious, but I don't care. They're good fan casts. Fan casting. Why change something that's not broken? But yes, anyway, again, thank you so much for watching it. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps this video go out. Also, share this video so that you can hear people's opinions, so that people can share their opinions on this video. I know this pitch sounds like a traditional, like what everyone else would pitch for Spider-Man 4, but again, this is a pitch that I created literally after No Way Home came out, and I know so many other people have done like this exact pitch, not this exact one, of Kingpin's the main antagonist, Daredevil is the supporting character, and Scorpion's his main henchman. Like, I understand, but that's sort of like the route that everyone expects it to go, and sort of the obvious route to go. And so I just wanted to add my own version of what this story could be. So again, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, that way you can know whenever a new pitch video goes live. And again, thank you so much for doing this Spider-Man month with me and appreciating my favorite comic book hero, Spider-Man, on his 60th anniversary. Again, thank you so much. I've been Mr. EliMac, you've been the audience, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.